You did not apply for this job. The job found you. That is the first thing to understand about intelligence work. They watch people for a long time before they approach. By the time someone sat across from you in that unremarkable coffee shop, they already knew more about you than your closest friend did. You were 26, you spoke 3 languages. You had a psychology degree and a graduate thesis on decision-making under pressure. You also had something that doesn't appear on any resume, an ability to be in a room without the room noticing you. They had identified this in you 2 years before they sat down. The recruiter was a woman in her 50s. She introduced herself with a name you later confirmed was not her name. She told you what the job was in 4 sentences. She told you what it would cost in 1. Then she slid a card across the table and told you to call the number if you wanted to know more. She stood up and left before you could ask a question. You called the number 3 days later, not because you were brave, because you couldn't stop thinking about the 1 sentence about the cost. You needed to know what it was. You told yourself you were just going to hear more. That is what everyone tells themselves. Almost no one stops at hearing more. The second meeting was in a government building with no signage. You were walked through 3 separate security checks. You were asked to leave your phone, your watch, and your keys in a box. You were told the box would be returned to you. You never worried about whether it would be. That instinct, not worrying about the box, was itself a data point they recorded. They asked you 47 questions over 3 hours. Some were obvious background checks. Some were designed to see how you responded to absurdity. One question made no sense at all, and the correct answer was not to try to make sense of it. You gave that answer by accident. They noted it. They offered you the position 6 weeks later, a letter, no return address. Inside, a date, a time, a location, in 1 sentence. What you do next determines everything after. You read it 4 times. You went for a run. You came back. You packed a bag. You did not tell anyone where you were going because you didn't know what to say. You left your apartment on a Tuesday morning. You had told your landlord you'd be traveling for work. You had told your mother you had a new job in consulting. You had told your best friend nothing because he would have asked too many questions. And you had already learned that too many questions were going to be the new shape of your life. The farm, that is what everyone calls it. It is a training facility in Virginia that does not appear on any public map. You will spend 6 months there. By the end, you will be a different person, not dramatically, not like a movie, but in the specific way that learning to manage fear changes a person permanently. Week 1, they take your name, not legally but functionally. You are assigned to train an alias. You use it for 6 months. By month 3, you answer to it faster than your real name. That speed is the point. Identity is more fragile than anyone who hasn't tested it believes. They teach you to surveil, to follow a person through a city for 8 hours without being detected, to know where every exit in a building is within 60 seconds of entering, to sit in a cafe and know, without looking directly, exactly who else is in the room. You will never enter a public space the same way again for the rest of your life. They teach you to lie, not crudely, specifically. The difference between a lie that works and one that doesn't is almost never the words. It is the body before the words. They spend 3 weeks on the body before the words. You learn things about human belief that make you a better and worse person simultaneously. They teach you to build relationships with people who must never know who you are. This is called asset development. You will befriend someone, earn their trust over months, extract information they don't realize they're giving, and then, if the operation ends, disappear from their life completely. You practice this on each other during training. It is the most psychologically damaging exercise on the farm. SEER training, survival, evasion, resistance, escape. They simulate capture. They simulate interrogation. Not gently. The point is to find your breaking point in a controlled environment so you know where it is before the field does. You find yours on day 2. So does everyone. The ones who claim they didn't. They teach you to shoot. More importantly, they teach you when not to. A weapon is a failure of everything else. Your instructor says this on day 1 of weapons training and repeats it on the last day. In 20 years of intelligence work, you will draw a weapon 11 times. You will fire it twice. See, both times, everything else had already failed. Month 4, you are assigned a handler. She is 15 years senior to you. She has been in places you won't be cleared to know about for another decade. She tells you one thing in your first meeting that you carry for 20 years. Your most important asset in the field is not what you know. It is how comfortable you are with not knowing. Graduation, no ceremony, a folder, a cover identity. A first assignment, your handler shakes your hand. She says, "The work is real, the name isn't. Never confuse those two." You leave the farm on a Thursday, you do not look back. Looking back is a habit the farm trained out of you. You fly to your first posting on a commercial flight in coach. Not business class cover requires ordinary. You sit between a man who falls asleep on your shoulder and a child who asks what you do for work. Logistics consultant, you say. The child nods and loses interest. Your cover works on a 7-year-old. You note with some relief that this is a good sign. Your cover identity has a name, a history, a job, a hometown, and a college degree from a university you've never visited. You know the layout of its campus. You know 3 professors by name. You know the team colors. You know the coffee shop where you supposedly spent 4 years studying. None of this happened. All of it is true. The city is Eastern Europe. 2007. You are there as a trade consultant. Your actual job is to identify which mid-level government official is passing defense procurement information to a third party, and whether that third party is who Langley thinks it is. You have 4 months. You have one contact you can trust. Maybe. You rent an apartment, you establish routines, the same cafe every morning, the same route to work, the same table. Routines make you invisible because people who have something to hide change their patterns. You have nothing to hide, which means you can hide everything. You meet the target. Not by accident, though it appears to be. You have engineered 3 separate encounters that could plausibly result in a conversation. The third one works. His name is Victor. He is 53, mid-level, bored, underpaid, and desperately wants someone to think he is interesting. You find all of this genuinely useful. You meet Victor 7 times over 6 weeks. Drinks, a football match, a gallery opening. Each meeting is chosen by you for reasons Victor will never know. You learn his tells, his grievances, his pride points, the specific way his face changes when he's about to say something he shouldn't. You know his face better than his wife does. She sees it with love. You see it with purpose. Victor tells you something on a Wednesday evening that he has never told anyone, not because he trusts you, because you made him feel, over 6 weeks, that you were the kind of person worth telling. That distinction, the manufacturing of worthiness, is the most morally complex thing this job asks of you. You sit with it for about 40 seconds. Then you encode the information and transmit it. The information is correct. Langley confirms within 72 hours. You receive a 1-line message, "Good work, continue." That is the complete feedback loop of an intelligence operation. No celebration, no acknowledgement, a sentence fragment. And you feel, despite everything, a specific satisfaction that is difficult to explain to anyone who hasn't felt it. Month 3. The operation shifts. Langley believes the third party is not who they originally thought. The information Victor has been passing has been going somewhere else first. This means someone in the chain between Victor and the endpoint is running a separate operation. It means someone is watching the operation. It possibly means someone is watching you. You change your routine for the first time in 3 months. A different cafe. A different route. You do this on the assumption that whoever might be watching will notice the change, and it will tell you something about whether you are being watched. Within 24 hours, you know. Someone noticed. Someone adjusted. You are being followed. You do not panic, this is worth noting. Not because you are brave, but because the farm taught you that panic is information leaking out of your body. And you cannot afford leaks. You walk to a bookshop. You spend 20 minutes selecting a novel you have no intention of reading. You buy it, you leave. You have transmitted an emergency signal using a dead drop system that your handler checks every 6 hours. Your handler pulls you out of the city for 48 hours. A safe house, nondescript. The kind of place that exists in every major city and looks exactly like the kind of place you don't look at twice. She tells you what Langley knows. She tells you what Langley thinks they know. Then she tells you the difference between those two things, and that difference is where you will operate. You are given a choice. Extract now with what you have. Or go back in, get closer to the source, and risk the fact that someone already knows approximately what you are. Your handler presents both options with equal weight. That is her job, to present, not decide. The decision is yours. In 20 years, you will make this kind of choice 19 times. You will be wrong 4 times. 2 of those times will cost lives. You go back and Victor meets you at the usual bar. He seems different, not suspicious, nervous. The difference matters. Suspicious means he knows something about you. Nervous means something has happened to him. You spend 40 minutes figuring out which one it is. It is nervous. His supervisor has started asking questions about his outside contacts, about you. You have a conversation with Victor that operates on two levels simultaneously. On the surface, two friends catching up over drinks. Underneath, you are gathering exactly what his supervisor knows, how much time you have, and whether Victor is a risk to the operation or just frightened. It is the most demanding cognitive exercise a human being can do. Most people can't hold two conversations at once for an hour. This is the job. Victor gives you one more piece of information. He doesn't mean to. It comes out during a moment when the nervous energy breaks through the careful. He mentions a name that is not supposed to be in this conversation. You don't react. You keep talking. You file the name in a place in your mind that you have trained to hold things without expression. That name changes the entire operation. You leave the bar at 10:47 p.m. You take a route home that is 40 minutes longer than necessary. You are checking for surveillance. There is none, or there is some so good you can't detect it. Both of those possibilities require the same response. Assume you are always being watched and move accordingly. You will live by this rule for 20 years. It will save your life twice and cost you your marriage once. The name Victor mentioned leads to a second identity inside the operation. Someone who is not Victor but has been using Victor. You transmit this to Langley. The response takes 18 hours, unusually long. When it arrives, it is 2 words. Stand down, no explanation. You stand down. The operation ends 3 days later. You are told nothing else. You will spend the next 11 years wondering what those 2 words knew that you didn't. You leave the city on a Tuesday, different airline, different name on the ticket. You walk past Victor on the way to your gate. He's traveling with his wife and 2 children. He does not recognize you because the version of you he knew no longer exists. You watch him pass. His children are arguing about something small. His wife is laughing. He looks like a man who survived something he doesn't know he survived. On the flight home, you order a coffee and look out the window and feel something. Not guilt exactly, not pride. Something that sits between them and has no name in any of the 3 languages you speak. You drink the coffee. You read the novel you bought in the bookshop. It is actually very good. You finish it before you land. This is, in its own way, a perfect summary of the job. Your mother thinks you work for the State Department. This is what your cover says. This is what your cover has said for 11 years. She is proud of this. She tells her friends. She has no idea what the State Department actually does beyond a vague sense of importance. You have never corrected this vague sense. It is the most useful vagueness in your life. You get married at 31. She is a doctor. She is brilliant and curious and asks good questions, which is exactly the kind of person you should not marry in your line of work, and exactly the kind of person you want to spend your life with. These 2 facts coexist with difficulty for 9 years. She asks you on your 2nd anniversary what you actually do, not the cover story, what you actually do. She is a doctor. She reads people. She has known for 2 years that the cover story has edges that don't match. You give her a version of the truth that is true enough to be honest and incomplete enough to be legal. She sits with it for a long time. She accepts it. That acceptance costs her something too. You miss things, a lot of things. Her graduation when she finishes her fellowship, your father's 75th birthday, a friend's funeral, 2 Christmases. Your daughter's first steps, she's walking when you come home, not learning. You were in a country you can't name, doing a thing you can't describe. You bring gifts from airports. This is not the same thing as being there. Your daughter asks you one evening what you did at work. She is 7. You tell her you help keep people safe. She asks, "What people?" You say, "People we'll never meet." She thinks about this for a moment. Then she says, "Like superheroes, but boring?" You tell her yes, exactly like that. It is the most accurate description of the job you have ever heard. Year 9 of the marriage. Your wife sits you down. Not angry, exhausted. She says she is not leaving because she's stopped loving you. She is leaving because she realized she has been loving a version of you that is only available part of the time. And she has spent 9 years waiting for the rest to arrive. She says she is done waiting. She says this with great kindness. It is the kindness that makes it irreversible. You do not contest the divorce. You negotiate custody in a way that gives your daughter as much continuity as an unpredictable deployment schedule allows. You move into an apartment that is, without you planning it, very similar to your first apartment. Same size, same light. You notice this 6 months in. You don't know what to do with the noticing. Your daughter visits every other weekend. She is 10 now. She has her mother's curiosity. She asks different questions each visit. Smart, probing, getting closer each time to the shape of what you actually do. You answer each one truthfully at the edges. You teach her, without knowing you're teaching her, to read a room, to notice exits, to understand that the most important information is often the thing nobody says. You are making her, slightly, into you. You are not sure how you feel about this. Year 14, the hardest operation. A recruited asset, someone you spent 8 months cultivating, is compromised. Not by your mistake, by a leak inside the agency. Someone on your side told someone on their side. Your asset is arrested on a Tuesday. You find out on Wednesday. You are told there is nothing you can do. This is true. You do not fully accept it for 7 years. You request an internal investigation. It is denied. You request it again with more documentation. It is denied with a more polite letter. You request it a third time through a different channel. You are called into an office and told very clearly that pursuing this further will affect your clearance. You stop pursuing it officially. You do not stop. You find the leak 18 months later. Not through official channels, through the habits and patience the farm taught you applied to your own organization. The person is 2 levels above you. You package the evidence. You deliver it to the one person inside the agency you trust entirely. You do not know what happens next. You are not supposed to know. This is, you understand, entirely consistent with the job you signed up for. The moment that costs the most, year 16. You are running an operation in a city you cannot name. An asset you have worked with for 3 years tells you they want to stop. They are scared. They have a family. They want out. You have the authority to extract them. You also have orders to keep the operation running for 60 more days. You ask for an extraction authorization. It takes 11 days to approve. The asset does not survive 11 days. You file a report. It is 4 pages. The 4th page is an accounting of the 11 days every hour, every request, every delay. Your handler reads it. She calls you. She says one thing, write it down, and then put it somewhere where it doesn't run the rest of your work. You write it in a notebook. You never open that notebook again, but you know where it is. You will always know where it is. You request a desk assignment for 6 months. Not because you are broken, because you are aware that you are close to broken and there is a difference. The desk is Langley. You analyze. You brief. You do not go into the field. At month 4, you start sleeping properly for the first time in 3 years. At month 6, you request to go back out. Your handler approves it in 1 sentence. Knew you would, she says. She always knows. You go back out, a different city, a different cover, a different language, the same job. And you discover, with something that takes a week to name, that you are better at it now. Not despite the 16 years and everything they cost. Because of them. The breaking points didn't break you. They calibrated you. That is the deal the work offers. Not everyone accepts it. You did, without fully reading the terms. The thing nobody tells you about intelligence work, most of it is not dramatic. Most of it is patience. Most of it is reading documents, building analyses, maintaining covers, waiting. The ratio of extraordinary to ordinary is roughly 1 to 40. The one extraordinary moment is only possible because of the 40 ordinary ones. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something or was never actually in the work. The thing nobody tells you about the cover identity, you don't lose yourself in it. That's the movie version. What actually happens is more interesting. You carry both identities simultaneously, and over time they inform each other. The cover learns things from the real self. The real self learns things from the cover. By year 10, you are neither person exactly. You are a third thing that has no name on any document. The moral cost is real. The asset development, befriending people for purpose, leaves a mark. Not every operation, not most of them, but some. Victor leaves a mark. The asset you couldn't extract in time leaves a mark. You carry them. Not with guilt that paralyzes, with awareness that costs. There is a difference, and learning it is its own education. The loneliness, different from the president's loneliness, different from the billionaires. This one is specifically shaped by what you cannot say. You will have experiences, extraordinary, terrifying human experiences that you will never be able to share with anyone who wasn't there. You will carry them in translation forever. That accumulation of untranslatable experience is the specific weight of this work. What the work gives back, a profound understanding of how the world actually operates, not as it presents itself, but as it functions. The real architecture of events. The understanding that most of what appears in newspapers is the visible surface of decisions made in rooms that don't appear in newspapers. You will never read the news the same way again. This is not cynicism. It is cartography. You know the shape of the thing under the map. The question you are never asked but always carry, was it worth it? You have thought about this with more discipline than any other question in your life. The answer is not yes or no. The answer is, I would not trade the work. I would trade some of what the work cost. Those are not the same thing, and the space between them is where you have lived for 20 years. Year 20, your handler retires. She sends you one message, 3 words, good work, out. That is 20 years of the closest professional relationship of your life compressed into 3 words. You read it in a cafe in a city you can name. You order a second coffee. You sit with those 3 words for a long time. They are enough. In this work, 3 words can be enough. You are offered a desk position, permanent senior analyst. You would train the next generation, brief the people who go out. You would be the handler you had. You accept on a Thursday. You start on a Monday. You walk into a building with a badge that uses your real name for the first time in 19 years. It feels strange and right and slightly like grief all at once. Your first recruit, 26, 3 languages, a psychology background, an ability to be in a room without the room noticing. You sit across from them in a coffee shop and you watch them not react when you arrive 3 minutes late, and you order a coffee, you introduce yourself with your real name. It still feels slightly wrong. That, you decide, is probably correct. Your daughter is 23 now. She works in cybersecurity. You have never told her what you did. But she knows, in the way that children always know the shape of a thing they were never directly shown. She calls you one evening and asks, "Were you actually in consulting?" You pause. You say, "I was in a kind of consulting." She says, "Okay." There is a silence. Then, "Were you good at it?" You say yes. She says, "Good." That conversation is everything. The notebook, the one from year 16, the asset you couldn't extract in time, you open it once, 20 years after you closed it, you read it, you sit with it for an hour, then you close it again. You do not destroy it, because he deserves to exist somewhere, even if only in your handwriting, even if only in a notebook that only you will ever read. That is the only monument the work allows. You place it back. You go to bed. You sleep. Here is what the work actually is. It is invisible service to people who will never know you serve them. It is the willingness to carry things that cannot be shared. It is patience practiced until it becomes a kind of courage. And it is the understanding, hard won, genuinely costly, that power exercised without visibility is still power. And that the people who hold it bear a weight that has no ceremony, no applause, no monument except the small notebooks that only they will ever read.